Hello everyone. Welcome to the second video of Figma plugin development. I'm assuming now that you're watching the second video, you must have already enrolled yourself in this mini Figma plugin development course. With the previous video, we have already covered an introduction of what you can expect from this course. So if you haven't already seen that video, I would recommend you to go watch that previous video from this playlist. But otherwise, with this video, we're going to jump right into understanding how the under the hood stuff of Figma plugins work, how you can approach complex plugins in case if you already have some development experience. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So I'm going to open this up by answering a very basic question about what is a plugin. So let's go through a definition first, and then we'll try to break this definition and understand in our own simple language about what is a plugin. So as this definition says, a plugin is a software component that adds a specific feature to an existing computer program. By that, what I mean is a plugin is a tool, a functionality or set of features which you can add on top of any existing application. So this is something which is not offered directly by the application, but you as a developer or program can identify that problem and leverage the APIs or support which is given by that application to frame your own plugin. Now, as you know, the term itself is called plugin, and it's not altering the code base of the existing application. It is something that you are adding as a layer on top of the application. And this layer is something that you can publish it online on a community or a forum, which can be later consumed by any user of the application. So that is a plugin for you. Now let's understand what is a Figma plugin. Now again, the same logic apply here. A Figma plugin is again a set of features which are added by designers or developer to extend the functionality of Figma app. Like any other app, you can write some set of features which can be added on top of Figma, and then it can be used by any developer, any designer to make use of that feature. And again, you can publish this on Figma community, and this can be downloaded by them to make it useful. Now let's take some examples of how are the existing Figma plugins solving the existing problems. Let's say there's a problem which is about inserting icons. So there's a plugin for that which is called Iconify. So now instead of you going to different icon libraries and manually adding the icons, there's a plugin which directly opens in your Figma artboard which is called Iconify. You can simply choose from the icon libraries which you are interested in and directly drag the icon which you want to use. So thus it is solving a problem which is not directly being solved by Figma, but using the APIs which are offered by Figma. Let's say there's another problem which is about removing background. So instead of you always going to any image manipulation tool like Photoshop or anything else for manually editing these images, you can directly trigger a plugin called remove.bg which can instantly remove the background from your images and directly put it in your Figma artboard without you leaving your artboard itself. Again, not directly being solved by Figma, but being solved by a developer who is adding this functionality on top of Figma. Let's take another problem. Let's say you have a problem of UX microcopies where you deal with microcopies on your day-to-day life as a designer. You end up writing lorem ipsum or very random stuff which is not at all relevant to the users who are using this application. So in that case, instead of you always looking for copies online or referring to other stuff, there's a plugin. There's a plugin called Ghost UX Writer which opens right in front of your Figma artboard. You just have to open this plugin, choose from the categories which offers and choose from various voice tones and just directly click on insert a copy. And that's it. It inserts micro copies in your Figma plugin without you leaving the Figma application. So thus, if you look at all these problems here, these are some of the problems which are solved by adding some set of features by developers on top of Figma application. And these are some of Figma plugins which are being used day to day by everyone. Now, let's move to how does a basic Figma plugin works. Like any other application, Figma plugins are also a combination of UI plus functionality. UI is something that you see in front of you, that is something that you can interact with, and functionality is something that is being solved by that application. set of logics, set of algorithms which are being added by developers which do the job in the background. Now let's try and break it down that how you can write this UI and functionality when you're working with Figma plugins. Now UI in Figma plugin can be handled with HTML and CSS, and there's a file for that which is called ui.html. As of now, you cannot write your HTML and CSS in two separate files. You can write them in one single file with inline CSS as in your ui.html file. Moving to the functionality with Figma plugins is handled with JavaScript. Now, there is one important thing that you need to understand here. While writing Figma plugins, you cannot directly write your functionality with a JavaScript code. Figma is suggesting developers to write that with a TypeScript format. Now, TypeScript is a superscript to JavaScript, which is adding all the error handling functionalities which are not directly being handled by JavaScript. You will be writing a TypeScript code which is robust and which is very strong and which is handling the error codes while writing the program itself. So that is the reason why Figma recommends developers to write their code in TypeScript and then convert it into JavaScript. So TypeScript is something that can be written and can be later converted into JavaScript, and then your Figma plugin environment can consume that JavaScript file. We will be coming to this on how we will be converting this TypeScript to JavaScript. But for now, you need to remember that you will be writing a functionality in TypeScript, which is very similar to JavaScript, and then you will be converting that functionality into JavaScript with a very simple script which is supported into your VS Studio Code itself, where you will be writing the code. But what about complex plugins? Now you know how you write simple plugins which are just combination of UI plus functionalities. But what if you are already an advanced developer who want to leverage the APIs which are openly available for any other products? Let's say you are integrating a payment gateway, or let's say you are using some APIs which are open source. How do you integrate those APIs in your plugins? Also, if you are a front-end developers who deal with a component or library which are using very complex components, and you just don't want to write directly straight HTML, you want to use those components to make your work easy. And what if you're writing a plugin which is going very complex and which is having multiple files to deal with? Now, to handle those multiple files, it's not directly supported in Figma. So how do you write such complex plugins? So let's try and break it down. So if you are someone who deals with APIs, you can make use of TypeScript, as we spoke earlier in the previous slide. Now, TypeScript is something which can help you with communicating with those APIs which are openly available to you, which are offered by any application. And TypeScript makes it easier to handle all those error edge cases while using such APIs. And if you want to write complex front end, you have React and Vue.js. That is something that you can use along with your Figma plugin when you're writing the UI of those Figma plugins. And if you are someone who wants to deal with multiple files, there's a support for Webpack as well. And you can use this Webpack to bundle your files into one single file, which can be directly consumed by your Figma plugin environment. And that is how you can write complex plugins while writing a Figma plugin. And that was it for this video.